The first pay-per-view of 2024 is here, UFC 297. We're less than a week away, and it's time for me to give my breakdown and predictions for every single fight on this card. And although this one isn't that stacked with big names, I really do believe that this is going to deliver, at least as far as entertainment goes. I think we're going to get a lot of finishes, more specifically, a lot of KOs. All right, there's a lot of one-sided matchups, but what I'm telling you is that we're going to have a lot of fun, and there are going to be some surprises here in this video. Now, I may shock you with a couple of these picks, but without further ado, let's get into it, all right? Now, if you guys just want to hear a particular take of mine on just one of these fights, make sure to head to the timestamps in the description, and let's get into the first one. Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick. I'm going with Jimmy Flick. All right, now he has 2 decent submission wins in the UFC, one over Nate Smith, another one over Cody Durden. If you don't know Cody Durden, that's a good wrestler. All right, he's been submitted before, but his grappling is to be respected. All right, that guy is a pretty decent fighter. Whereas Malcolm Gordon's been submitted twice in the UFC. He's also been knocked out twice, and he only has one legitimate win, which is a decision over Francisco Figueiredo, which is by no means an impressive victory. Okay, just because of the fight itself, he didn't really look that convincing. On his record, you'll also see a TKO win. I'm talking about Malcolm Gordon's record. He has a TKO win over Dennis Bonder. It's a fluke accident, all right? Freak injury. So that already, we're scratching that. That doesn't even count. Weird accident on the ground. Denise Bonder got injured in a grappling exchange. The ref called it off. I'm looking at Jimmy Flick's record. This guy's only lost twice in the UFC by TKO. Once to Alessandro Costa, who is the guy that gave Steve Erceg a tough fight, kind of fraud-checked him a little bit and put all of the Erceg fanboys in their place. And the other one was a loss to Charles Johnson by TKO, and Charles Johnson's a pretty good fighter. I'm going to have to go with Jimmy Flick because he has 2 legitimate wins in the UFC, both by submission. Malcolm Gordon doesn't have finishing potential. He's been knocked out, and he's also been subbed twice. Why would I pick him? Like, what has he shown me to make me pick this guy in this fight? No finishing ability. The submission defense isn't that great. Whereas Jimmy Flick actually has a redeeming quality when it comes to his submission skills. I'm picking Flick to win this one. It's a low-level fight. You can never be sure, but there are more reasons to pick him. I'm going with Flick with the 2 submission wins versus the guy that has nothing in his career that's impressive at all and no submission defense. Let's get on to the next fight. Yohan Lainesse versus Sam Patterson. The Brit killer makes his return. That's right. The guy that fraud-checked the British Justin Gaethje in Justin Burlinson is back. I think Yohan Lainesse is laying this dude out. Another 6'3" lightweight like Tom Nolan. People call these guys weight bullies. Again, if you're making weight, you're not a weight bully. There's always a give and there's a take. And the take, that's going to be the chin for Sam Patterson. He's getting knocked out. I really do believe that. This guy has been knocked out a couple of times in his career. He's got the long, lanky build. But Yohan Lainesse is by no means a small fry. This guy's 6'1". He's got tons of power in his hands. He's a marauder, and he's only lost to Gabe Green and Mike Malott. Now, Mike Malott has a lot of potential. He has a lot of talent, a 100% finish rate. He's a really high fight IQ fighter. Gabe Green, on the other hand, got dropped, even face planted against Yohan Lainesse in their fight. Came back to win. He, put it on Yohan with body shots. But I just don't know if Sam Patterson, who has those brittle bones, not enough sunlight, I don't know if he'll be able to withstand the power of Yohan Lainesse because, again, this guy got knocked out by Yanal Ashmouz. The Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman fight card? He had a lot of hype going into it. British prospect, you know how the Brits get behind all of their fighters. Just can't take a punch, all right? Cannot take a punch. Again, he's been knocked out a couple of times in his career, and it's just a matter of time before Yohan Lainesse lands a big bomb on his chin. And that chin is going to be dehydrated, I'll tell you that. So I think Yohan Lainesse is going to earn a little bit of a nickname here. I'll be the first one to give it to him, and that's the Brit Killer. Just wait on Saturday. I'm telling you now, that fight's ending in a knockout. All right, Yohan Lainesse, he's only losing to guys that, number one, are digging deep. Gabe Green, digging deep after getting face planted, after getting knocked down a couple of times. Mike Malott. Malott had a lot of respect for the power coming back in his direction. How does he win? Well, he wins by submission. He takes this man to the ground. Now, Sam Patterson has a bunch of submissions throughout his career. I just don't know if he's as physical, as fast, as hydrated as a Mike Malott. I don't know if he's going to be able to dig deep like a Gabe Green. Gabe Green, again, got rocked many times, dropped multiple times against Yohan Lainesse. Has to dig deep, has to get gritty, bite down on the mouthpiece. I don't think that the brittle-boned, pale, vitamin D lacking Sam Patterson is going to be able to bite down on the mouthpiece and get gritty. So we're going to have to go with Yohan Lainesse, who's the marauder of this weight class. Low level, but durable, heavy-handed, knows how to impose his will. And I think that Patterson coming off of the KO loss may be a little bit jittery in this one. Yohan Lainesse, let's say first round KO. On to the next one. Serhiy Sidey versus Ramon Taveras. It's time for a rematch, all right? Now, if you don't know, these guys fought in the Dana White Contender Series, and Serhiy Sidey knocked out Ramon Taveras. Dana White was pissed. I think he was pissed. Dana always seems to get upset when his favorite prospects don't win. It may have been another fight that I'm thinking about, but either way, it was an early stoppage. Serhiy Sidey clips Ramon Taveras with the right hand. Taveras had a lot of hype going into this. The ref steps in way too early. Like, I'm talking, this was more of a flash knockdown than anything else. It must have been Mark Goddard in the cage. But I'm picking Serhiy Sidey to win this fight. All right, I see a lot of people leaning towards Taveras because he's the heavy-handed prospect. All right, if you watch this guy's fights, he's got lots of power in his hands. Serhiy Sidey's a little bit slower, a little bit lankier, a little bit weaker. But I think that Serhiy Sidey's in Ramon Taveras' head. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but I checked out both of their Instagrams. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into this matchup because Ramon Taveras is real confident. He's commenting on every single Serhiy Sidey post. Whether he's saying, hey man, make sure to bring your wrestling shoes. You're not getting lucky twice. Or saying things like, can't wait for our fight, buddy. He's just poking at Serhiy Sidey. I think he's trying to tell Serhiy that, hey, you got lucky. I'm the guy that had all the hype. And you know you're not going to fluke it again. But I think it's actually going to work against him this time. I think he's going to go into this fight overconfident. All right? He's going to have his guard up. He's going to be tense, though, and he's really going to be trying to plant one on Serhiy Sidey. I think Serhiy Sidey's going to be relaxed, calm. He's been training with Mike Malott. Not that that makes a big difference, but I really do believe that that team up in Canada, something tells me, especially if you look at Mike Mallott's fight IQ, I think Serhiy Sidey, I think he's going to go in there, remain calm, and I think he's going to catch Ramon while he's a little bit emotional. All right, now Ramon knows how to impose his will. 90% of the time, I'd pick someone that looks like this guy. He stalks guys down. He has a heavy jab. He's very patient. He is, for the most part, defensively sound. But Sidey's just got that long, awkward build, right? If you overextend on him and you're lacking in reach, he can sneak one on you. He can catch you coming in, and I think he's going to do the exact same thing. I think he's going to knock Ramon out in the first round. I could just see it happening, man. I got to go with my gut on this one. I got to go with my gut. A lot of people picking Ramon. He's the more powerful guy, but I'm going with Serhiy. I'm going with Serhiy, and the way to beat Serhiy is to out-grapple him. All right, let me just make sure. He's been out-grappled by one guy. That's Matteo Vogel, Matt Vogel, who has out-grappled multiple guys on the amateur scene. I don't think Ramon's going to be able to do that. I think he's going to go in there itching to knock this guy out. He's going to overextend. He's going to rush the finish. He's going to get caught coming in. And Serhiy Sidey is going to be like the real prospect in this division, right? We're going to forget about Ramon. Right now, it feels like Ramon's that guy. He's coming back for vengeance. We're going to forget about him after this one. Serhiy Sidey will be a name in this division. But this could end really poorly for me. I just have a feeling Ramon's a little bit too confident right now. Leaving all of these comments on Serhiy's Instagram, making a big deal out of this fight. I think he's underestimating him. He's about to get knocked out. Let's just say that. On to the next one. Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. The slender man Sean Woodson with the weirdest build I've ever seen in my entire life. He's got like a 78-inch reach. He's like 6'2" in the featherweight division. He's taken on Pillow Hands Jourdain, who hasn't got a finish by TKO in ages. and I think he's due, okay? I'm picking Charles Jourdain to knock out Sean Woodson. As I said earlier on in this video about these 6'3" lightweights like Sam Patterson, there's a give and there's a take, and the take is the chin. We know Sean Woodson's going to have a brain that's not fully hydrated, and the last time I saw him take on a competent striker in Luis Saldana, he almost got flatline KO'd. He got dropped twice in that fight, almost finished multiple times. Not a good look. And again, that's really like the best striker that he's taken on in a long time. He just beat Dennis Bazooka, who took that fight on short notice. Dennis Bazooka trains at that Cerro Longo gym in Long Island. He's a decent grappler, but he gassed out early. He's kind of small for the division. He has T-Rex arms. And even though Jourdain has shorter arms for this division, he knows how to make it work, okay? The one worry for Charles Jourdain is the fact that he may get out-grappled. He's been out-grappled before. We saw Shane Burgos take him down and take his back. But Jourdain still outstruck Shane Burgos, and in my opinion, I rewatched that fight. He won that matchup. I was there live. I remember I thought he won watching it live, but I rewatched it today. I still think he won. Rounds 1 and round 3, and we're talking about, the reach advantage for Sean Woodson. He has a 78-inch reach, and Charles Jourdain has a 69-inch reach. Well, I've seen Charles Jourdain make up the gap in reach and do just fine against a guy like Shane Burgos, who has a long reach. He outstruck him, okay? I've seen Charles Jourdain outstrike Nathaniel Wood, who won that fight just by a hair, okay? Nathaniel Wood looked good there, but it was really the control time at the end of some of these rounds where he got a takedown, got like 30 seconds of control. That was really what won him the fight. But, man, Charles Jourdain, a lot of these losses that he has, they could be wins. And even though he doesn't really have a lot of power in his hands, I think he's got a crazy amount of confidence, and that's going to make up for it. He's going to walk down Sean Woodson. He knows that if he gets taken down, he has a good guillotine, he has a good submission game, so he may be able to make something work off of his back. But I think he's going to walk down Sean Woodson, who is tough to hit every now and then. But again, Jourdain's not a guy that's just headhunting. I mean, he's got great body shots. He's got great kicks. I mean, you guys probably remember that viral Spartan kick moment he had as well. So I think he's going to walk down Sean Woodson. I think he's going to beat him up on the feet. He'll use his kicks quite well in this matchup. And I think it's just a matter of time before Charles Jourdain tags the dehydrated Sean Woodson. And, Jourdain, despite having a bunch of losses, he's only really losing to guys that are very, very good. And those losses could be wins. He's been submitted in the past. It's possible that he can get out-grappled, all right? He's been taken down by Shane Burgos, and Woodson does have that big frame advantage, and maybe Woodson can take him down and smother him on the ground a little bit. But I just don't think that's that likely, okay? I think that Charles Jourdain is leveling up. He's been able to nullify grappling against decent guys like Kron Gracie as well. So I trust in him in this one. I think he's going to go out there and get himself a nice finish for the first time in forever. And I know he's got a couple of submissions recently, but I'm talking about like the first KO that he's had in a while. So Jourdain gets it done. Let's say a first round KO versus Charles Jourdain. Okay, on to the next one. Brad Katona versus Garrett Armfield. Now, this is a pretty tricky one, all right? Because Brad Katona, he's won tough twice. And you may hear that and you may say to yourself, oh, well, obviously this guy's going to win this fight. Garrett Armfield, 1-1 in the UFC, not that great. Has a lot of pop, but we just saw Brad Katona prove that he has that dog in him against Cody Gibson. One of the best fights of last year. But I don't know if it's a great look to go to a close decision in a war with Cody Gibson, an older man that couldn't cut it in the UFC, that was also on this recent season of Tough, and we all know that the recent season especially just had a terrible roster of guys. Man, I think that Brad Katona, for the most part, is a guy that really needs to utilize that control time on the ground. He's a smart fighter. He does have the toughness. He proved that in his last fight. He can throw with high output. He has a good gas tank. But I just don't like all of these stinky decisions. I don't like the fact that he had to go back to Tough, all right? He's not a dangerous man, in my opinion, All right, you can't KO Cody Gibson. I know Cody Gibson may be tough, but that man's been knocked out before. You can't KO Cody Gibson. I don't think you're going to go out here and hurt Garrett Armfield, who got submitted by David Onama. But David Onama was up a weight class at 145. Right now, granted, Armfield took that fight on short notice, but I believe that Armfield has the power advantage on the feet. I think that he's, again, that wasn't the best representation of his grappling. He has been out-grappled before as well by Mateo Vogel. I already mentioned him. I don't know why that guy's not in the UFC. He's already beat a couple of these guys that we've talked about. He's been out-grappled before. Ah, man, this is a tough one. Katona didn't really shoot a lot of takedowns in that war against Cody Gibson, you know. So I may have to pick him in this fight just to stink it up to a decision, but I'm by no means confident in his abilities to win this fight. All right, he has a chin. I'll give him that. So I think that he will be tough enough to stand on the feet with this guy who's heavy-handed in Garrett Armfield. And I do believe that he'll have it within himself to take Armfield down, to frustrate him and stink it up to a decision. So I'll probably go with Katona. I'll say 29-28, maybe gets beat up in one of the rounds a little bit on the feet and just stinks it up. But I really do mean that he will not do a whole lot in this fight on the ground. It will be frustrating to watch. But I'm just going to lean with him just because I've seen this guy go out there and just get the takedown, and his entries are pretty decent. He has a lot of experience, so I'll go with him. But winning tough is not really the biggest flex in my opinion anymore. I think Dana White Contender Series has the better guys. Not everyone wants to go on this reality TV show that's dead, that's not going to give them any clout. Dana White Contender Series gives you way more clout. It's a much easier path into the UFC. You don't have to fight a bunch of times. And when I say easier, I just mean it's more efficient. It doesn't mean that the competition is easier. In fact, the competition is tougher, right? A lot of people may say no to going on tough because they want to go on the Dana White Contender Series. And that's why we get the scraps in the Contender Series that just want to get on TV but don't understand that no one's watching anymore. But either way, I'm going to go with Brad Katona to win a decision here. I think he'll get the takedown, but Garrett Armfield is going to be a tough fight on the feet, and this is not an old man Cody Gibson, all right? It's a more dangerous striker than Cody Gibson, so do not be surprised if Armfield gets the jump on him and just maybe out-damages him, stuffs some takedowns, or maybe even hurts Brad Katona and knocks him out, but I don't think that's going to happen because he has a good chin. But let's get on to the next one. Arnold Allen, wow, we're already here, versus Movsar Evloev. All right, guys. It's time to say that Arnold Allen is one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC, and I've underrated him massively even after his last fight with Max Holloway, because in my opinion, and I rewatched that fight today, he was winning the 5th round all the way up until the end where he gets dropped, a little bit of a flash knockdown. I think Max only won that fight 3-2. And I've said that Arnold Allen's a low output guy, low output Allen. He threw over 220 strikes in that fight, and I take it back. He was actually throwing with decent amount of output. And Max Holloway, we know, has a granite chin. Arnold Allen's speed is insane, all right? There's only one guy that's faster than him in that division, and that's Yair Rodriguez. But he took 2 rounds off of Holloway. The second round, that's an Arnold Allen round. If you disagree with what I'm saying and you think, oh, typical Lucas Tracy take, watch the 5th round and tell me that this guy, number one, has a shitty gas tank, and try to make an argument that Max Holloway is winning that round before the knockdown at the very end. And that was a very flash knockdown, very quick. But Allen was marching Holloway down, putting tons of pressure on him, landing at will, catching him with big hooks, snapping head kicks in there, grazing off of the guard of Max Holloway. And Holloway was not really doing a whole lot. Every now and then he'd land a pepper shot, but it was mostly pepper shots. The second round, Arnold Allen won, and the other rounds were pretty close. Man, that may be one of the best performances I've ever seen someone have against Max Holloway, aside from Volkanovski and Dustin Poirier. Okay? Really. I know Yair touched him up, but Yair got dominated on the ground and got beat up a little bit worse. Allen took 2 rounds off of Holloway, which is fucking crazy to say. And I think he's going to go in there, and I think he's going to finish Movsar Evloev. Okay? The speed is something Movsar's never dealt with. The movement of Arnold Allen is something Movsar's never dealt with. Evloev's best win is over Dan Ige. Ige's a great fighter. Top 10, no doubt. He's elite. But there's such a big difference between the movement of Dan Ige, the level of striking of Dan Ige, and Arnold Allen. You watch Allen move around. He's moving laterally aside the octagon, in and out, creating weird angles. He's all over the place. And he's very explosive. Dan Ige, this is Dan Ige. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to step back. I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to come back. Forward and back. Maybe back some more, and I'm going to go forward and back. That's all he does. It's just forward and back. And he's a one-shot type of guy. He's a one-pump chump. All right? He's a one-shot type of guy. I believe he has decent takedown defense, but Allen's takedown defense is probably just as good. He stuffed a lot of takedowns against Nick Lentz. The only time he's gotten taken down outside of that Nick Lentz fight, and if you look at the stats, it's listed as 0 takedowns. He was taken down by Nick Lentz. That's a long time ago. In his Mads Burnell fight, he was taken down there too. But I really believe that the speed of Allen, the movement, is going to be a big issue for him because Evloev's out there fighting Ige, who's a little bit slower than him, who has to deal with the third of the takedown and just simply moves in a straight line forward and back, and that's all he does. I think that I also see that Evloev leaves his chin open. I mean, look at Diego Lopez cracking him and rocking him, okay? I think this is going to be a bad fight for Evloev, man. I think that the level of striking is going to shock him, okay? The speed is going to shock him. Max Holloway, at this point in his career, is a guy that tries his best not to get hit, tries not to get into scraps, and was still getting clipped clean by Allen in the 5th round. Low output Allen, right? A guy that threw 220-plus strikes in that fight, that took the first 4 minutes off of Max Holloway in that 5th, that took the 2nd round, had a 3-2 fight against the long, rangy Holloway that did a whole lot more kicking, that's kind of harder to pin down these days. Evloev's right there. T-Rex arms, moves forward, puts a lot of pressure on his opponents, but that's the last guy you want to move forward into. Holloway was basically on the back foot or moving around laterally the whole time. He wasn't just moving forward. When he would move forward, he would only have success when he would blitz forward and catch Allen off guard after Allen threw a combination. And that was, something that he rarely did in that fight. But for the most part, he couldn't move forward because Allen would just catch him with a big shot coming in, an explosive shot coming off of an angle, an overhand left. And I also see that Allen's head kicks are nasty too. He's got fast head kicks. Holloway's got a granite chin. So a lot of these head kicks are landing flush on the guard or grazing over the guard, but you're never going to knock Holloway out. I'm watching Diego Lopez rock up Movsar Evloev and sting him around a little bit. And his striking is just not nearly as crisp. It's not nearly as fast and as unpredictable. His movement is also pretty basic, in and out. He's a little bit more of the stationary Muay Thai style. The only way where Allen's not going to be so effective in this fight is if the takedown threat is too big of a concern and it gets in his head, and that makes him more reserved. But there's a screw loose in that head of Arnold Allen, man. There's a screw loose in that head of Arnold Allen. He accepted the game plan from his coaches and marched Holloway down in the 5th round. That's not necessarily a guy you just want to march down. Because Max, we saw what he did to TKZ. You run at Max Holloway, he can put you out if you're going to slug with him. Allen had no fear of Max Holloway in that matchup. And yeah, he got dropped. He did get dropped at the final second of the fight. But he was literally running at Max Holloway with his chin on a silver platter like TKZ. And you're not going to win a scrap like that with Holloway. But either way, he was pushing forward. Biting down on the mouthpiece, pushing forward, making it happen. Watch the 5th round. I'm telling you, he won that 5th round outside of the little knockdown at the end. But Holloway, I'm watching that 5th and I'm like, how does he win this round? What's he doing? They didn't count the knockdown on the stats. I'm thinking to myself, I know they didn't count the knockdown. What is Holloway doing to win this round right now? Because I'm not seeing it. Okay? There's a screw loose in that head of Arnold Allen. He's a weird guy. People say this is the battle of the inbreds, okay? And I really do believe that Allen's going to make it happen. He's just going to do what he's told by his coaches. He's going to make it happen. He's not going to be too reserved. His cardio in a 3-rounder is going to be just fine. I think that I'm going to completely take back this low output Allen shit. He wasn't landing a lot on Holloway early on, but he was throwing, man. And Holloway, again, moving a lot. changing his style up these days to get hit less. And Holloway can play that game because he has those long legs. He can play the kicking at range game. And Evloev, as I said, just moves forward, throws a jab and a 1-2. That's pretty much it. Man, he could control Arnold Allen in this fight. He could take him down. He has a good gas tank. He has great grappling. He was beating Diego Lopez up on the ground, even though Diego Lopez had a couple of submission attempts. He was beating Diego Lopez up on the feet even, but Lopez isn't even close to the level of striking that Arnold Allen has, and he took that fight on short notice as well. I think Allen's knocking him out, man. Unless he gets taken down and held down for 3, I think he's knocking Evloev out. I really do. His chin is open. It's there to be hit. The speed is off the charts. I was so impressed watching that Holloway fight back, man. So unbelievably impressed. Allen's at his peak. He's in his prime. He's still getting better. And Evloev, we're seeing him outstrike like a simpleton like Dan Ige, right? We're seeing him go out there and beat up Diego Lopez, who's a good guy for sure. Pretty good. But not nearly as dangerous on the feet and as unpredictable on the feet as Allen. So I think Allen's going to get this one done. And you'll see that he's not just one of these other contenders, as I said, championship caliber right here. All right. I was saying Movsar Evloev and Ilia Topuria is going to be the future matchup that we all want to see. I think it's going to be Arnold Allen and Ilia Topuria in the future. All right. So I'm going with Allen. Chris Curtis versus Marc Andre Barriault. Big slugger Marc Andre Barriault, the big bruiser of the middleweight division. I mean, when I think of a bruiser, when I think of someone that just, goes in there and puts on a good slugfest, it's Marc Andre Barriault. Not the prettiest style. He had an ugly war with Eric Anders, and I think that it's very weird. First of all, wasn't Chris Curtis supposed to fight at welterweight? What the heck is going on? He's still fighting at middleweight, where he is a bit of a small middleweight. Now, we know Chris Curtis has that nasty KO power, but Marc Andre Barriault is 6'1", Chris Curtis is 5'10". Andre Barriault has a good chin. He has been knocked out by Chidi Njokuani, though. He's not a guy that's unfinishable. And Chris Curtis has yet to be finished in the UFC. Now, he got his ass kicked against Nasruddin Imavov, but Imavov is light on his feet, and that was the best Imavov ever looked, right? He even took Chris Curtis down, and I don't see Marc Andre Barriault doing that. I mean, for the most part, he's a striker. You look at the Jack Hermanson fight that Curtis lost. He lost that fight because he got kicked at range. Jack Hermanson, the Joker, of course, was just kicking him at range, running around the octagon, not really trying to engage. And Marc Andre Barriault just simply doesn't fight like that. He's not a Nasruddin Imavov that's light on his feet. He's not a guy that's going to kick you at range. He's not a guy that's going to shoot takedowns. That's a guy that's going to get in your face and slug a little bit. And that's where Chris Curtis does his best work. All right. Now, Kelvin Gastelum was able to beat Chris Curtis in that dirty boxing range, but there was also a little bit of a headbutt. It was a close fight. And even though Kelvin Gastelum looked like shit in his last fight against Sean Brady, we know that the welterweight division is a little bit more skilled. That was a grappling matchup. And I still think that KG is just a little bit better than Marc Andre Barriault. All right. And I think that Chris Curtis, I trust in his boxing skills. I trust in this guy's ability to stay patient and composed. And I do believe that he's the more technically sound boxer. So I'm going to go with Chris Curtis to win this one. Second or third round TKO for Chris Curtis. I think this is going to be a scrap. It's going to be a bit of a war of attrition, but Curtis, in my opinion, is the better boxer. That's where the fight is going to be, in that dirty boxing range. And ultimately, man, you look at who's more dangerous, you look at who has more KOs and who's beating the better levels of competition. Marc Andre Barriault, the guys that he's beating, we're talking Julian Marquez. We're talking Eric Anders, and that's an old Eric Anders. And that's a close fight, too. Jordan Wright. I mean, Jordan Wright is terrible. Dalche Lungiambula. I mean, the guy's dangerous, but he's certainly not very skilled. He's losing to Anthony Hernandez. He's losing to Chidi Njokuani. And Chidi Njokuani ain't that great. He's decent. But, of course, compare it to Chris Curtis's losses. Jack Hermanson, short notice, the Joker is just running around all over the octagon, kind of fighting like a Chris Gutierrez type of pitter-pat kicks at range approach. A boring fight. Curtis took that on short notice. Had to fly all the way to the UK. That's a very comfortable fight. That's an uncomfortable fight week for Chris Curtis, who usually just pops over at the Apex across the street from where he trains at Extreme Couture. And then he lost to Kelvin Gastelum in a close fight, but he's knocking out Joaquin Buckley. He's beating Rodolfo Vieira. Okay? He knocked out Brendan Allen. Knocks out Phil Hawes. And that's when it was cool to knock out Phil Hawes. All right? That's before everyone was doing it. Kenny Roberson, Jerome Hatch. I mean, I can go down the list. Chris Curtis, he's the better fighter. He's fought the better levels of competition. He's beat the better levels of competition. He's the better boxer. He's the better counter striker. He's going to get this one done. Marc Andre Barriault, pretty good, pretty tough. Not a can, not the bottom of the barrel, but just not on that Chris Curtis level. Chris Curtis, to me, he's like the 17th, 16th best guy in that division. Marc Andre Barriault, I'll say number 24. Up next, Mike Malott versus Neil Magny. Will Mike Malott prove that he's not just a typical NPC fighter in this welterweight division? Will he stand out? Is he one of the guys? I think he is. I think Mike Malott has really good fight IQ. I think this guy is incredibly underrated, and we're about to find out this weekend, of course, because this is a big step up in competition. We know that Neil Magny is the true gatekeeper of the top 10 in the welterweight division, but we can't sleep on Magny as well. I know that people think Magny's kind of trash, but listen, if you're passing GSP on the all-time list for welterweight wins, you know a thing or two about winning a fight. And even though he's never going to bring a scrap, he will frustrate guys. He'll put them in that clinch, he'll wear on them, and he'll, do what Magny normally does. Makes it a stink fest, makes it boring, smothers his head in your chest, knees you to the thigh. You know the deal. I think that Mike Malott is not just going to run into the clinch like Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe, going into that fight, I picked him to beat Magny, by the way, knocked his 3 previous opponents out. The issue with Phil Rowe is that he's not that well-rounded. Now, he's an okay grappler, but Malott, I'm telling you right now, I know this guy's well-rounded, and I know he has a good fight IQ, and I can tell because he's patient. All right, he was patient against Adam Fuckett. He was patient against Yohan Lainesse. He submitted both of those guys. Took Adam Fuckett down a couple of times with slick takedowns, and eventually dropped him in the second round of their fight. That was on the Canada card, UFC 289. Got him with a mounted guillotine. Against Yohan Lainesse, he was respectful of Yohan's power, ended up taking him down and getting him with an arm triangle. And before that, of course, knocking out Mickey Gall, submitting Shimon Shavetsky on the Contender Series. Don't tell me how to pronounce that name. I'll never get it. But 100% finish rate, well-rounded, has good takedowns. The way that he took down Adam Fuckett with it wasn't a hip toss. He got him with an inside trip or something, or maybe it was an outside trip, but he landed in half guard. That reminds me of the same takedown Gilbert Burns used to take down Neil Magny, and we saw what happened there. And I know it's Gilbert Burns, and don't compare Malott to Gilbert Burns, but Malott has a better submission game than Gilbert Burns. Okay, now granted, he's submitting lower-level guys, and if Gilbert Burns were to fight those lower-level guys, maybe he would sub them too. But Burns isn't really known for his submissions, let's be honest. He's a defensive grappler first and foremost, position before submission. Mike Malott is a submission guy. Mike Malott has wicked power on the feet. You're always going to be at a reach disadvantage with Neil Magny, and it will be hard to hit Neil Magny. Okay, if Mike Malott goes in there and he just tries to take Magny's head off, he tries to get in his face, things aren't going to go so well for him because he's not Ian Gary. He doesn't have the same ability to kick at range with high volume. He doesn't have the same feints, but he does have really good body kicks, and I think that is going to be pretty useful to get Magny to bring his guard down in case he wants to land a good shot up top. But either way, I just see him taking down Magny, who has a hole in his game being his submission defense. I mean, let me read you all the times that Neil Magny has been submitted. All right, so he got submitted by Gilbert Burns. He got submitted by Shavkat Rakhmonov. He got submitted by RDA, of course. He got submitted by Damian Maia. I mean, these are all excellent fighters, but Magny's also a little bit older, and the guys that he's beating are just a little bit more one-dimensional. They don't have the submission game, for example, like Li Jingliang, Robbie Lawler, Jeff Neal. Magny can beat Mike Malott if Malott doesn't grapple, okay? Because I do not believe he has the ability to just go out there and TKO Magny with ease. He may be able to hurt him on the feet. He's very fast, but I think it's going to be a submission in this fight. So I'm going to say he gets this one done in the second round. I'm picking a lot of second round finishes. To me, when I say second round, it just means that, you know, the first round's going to be a little bit of a feel out process. Maybe they have success at the end of it, but it's going to be tricky. Let's get on to the next one, okay? Here we go. Raquel Pennington and Mario Bueno Silva. I've been thinking about this one. I'm going to go with Raquel Pennington. Okay, I'm just joking. I'm going with Mario Bueno Silva. I was surprised when I rewatched one of Raquel Pennington's fights. She actually has some quick hands, but the thing is, man, every now and then she'll just throw one of those combinations and her head is down. She looks like she's swimming with one hand, and it's just real ugly. All right, Raquel Pennington's record is actually kind of impressive. Like, she has a lot of wins. But she lost to Holly Holm. Mario Bueno Silva submitted Holly Holm with a standing guillotine. It got overturned. I guess she popped. But I think Mario Bueno Silva is just the stronger girl here. She's more aggressive. And I just look at Raquel Pennington and I see that she's not in nearly as good shape as Mario Bueno Silva. And I think I'm going to weigh that heavily in this matchup. Mario Bueno Silva has bigger power. She's got the strength. And, you know, at the end of the day, I just think she wins, okay? I just think she's going to get it done. Hey, man, UFC should have done a better job at building these people up, okay? Main event time, Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. You've probably heard my take on this by now, but let me just narrow down what I really think this fight is going to boil down to, and that's that Dricus Du Plessis isn't going to gas out after one round like Jack Hermansson did. He's not going to gas out after one round like Abu Smagomedov did, all right? And unlike Jack Hermansson, Dricus is actually dangerous. He's not going to be shooting takedowns from a mile away. He's going to be willing to die in there, all right? He's going to be willing to get hit. If he needs to catch his breath and he needs to reload, I don't think that Sean Strickland has proven finishing ability enough for me to think that he can go out there and just finish Du Plessis if he gets a little bit tired. Okay, now maybe in the fourth or fifth, Strickland can make something happen. Maybe he could tag him with a beautiful shot early, because I have seen Dricus get rocked before. His chin is good, but he's not unfinishable. He's been knocked out, and Strickland could catch him with the perfect shot. But honestly, man, as I've said in the past, people have beat Strickland before. This is not something that's just, it's not something that we've never seen. Kamaru Usman did it back in the day. I know it's a different Strickland. Fair enough. Scratch that. Alex Pereira did it. Jared Cannonier did it. And I think that Dricus Du Plessis is going to be a more wild Jared Cannonier that's just fighting a more physical fight. All right? Essentially, this guy is like a wrecking ball when he fights people. Every action that Dricus does is with bad intentions. He's fully winding up. He's extending on his punches. And Strickland, I don't believe that his offense on the back foot is going to be good to deal with that, man. This guy throws like 7 punches around if he's getting put on the back foot. He's picking his shots, throwing little jabs here and there. And if he starts to let his hands go on Dricus, he could tag him, but eventually he's going to run into a double leg. Okay, he's going to run into a big overhand or a big hook. And I think Dricus knocks him out. The power that we've seen from Dricus Du Plessis, the ability that this guy has to go out there and break people. Again, people talk about his gas tank. It's underrated. Just watch his fight with Brad Taveras. Look at the pace that he was able to keep in that matchup. And that's before he got his nose surgery. Okay? This man is breaking Robert Whittaker, tiring him out, turning Whittaker into a sitting duck that's missing all of his strikes. Okay? We've seen his ability to game plan for Robert, prepare for all of his attacks, time his karate blitz. People critique him about the Derek Brunson fight. He got rocked up by Derek Brunson. He dominated the second round, the entirety of the second round. Brunson was totally broken and gassed out after the first. Dricus Du Plessis takes a toll on his opponents, man. He doesn't even need to land flush. It's just the fact that he's so physical in the cage, dude. and he hits like a truck, and he's got a good team around him. He has an underrated gas tank. I don't think he's going to gas out in the first round, in the second round. I think he's got at least 3 in him, okay? So I'm going to go with Dricus Du Plessis, 100% finish rate. Like, his last 20 wins, every single one of them comes from a finish, dude. I have to pick this guy, all right? Like, not many people have that kind of record. This is like a Yuri Prohaska who's more well-rounded, who in some ways has a better chin, okay? Who's like more of a physical specimen in the division. So I'm going to go with Dricus, okay? I like Strickland. His defense may win him this fight, but I just think you need a little bit more offense, man, to deal with a guy like Dricus. You need a little bit of offense to get Dricus's respect. And if Strickland starts fighting on downhill, which is where he can do his best work, as I said, I don't think his finishing ability is good enough for me to trust that he gets it done on Dricus in the earlier rounds. If Dricus is just catching his breath, Strickland's going to have to win this by decision, maybe like a much later round TKO. All right, so I just think that Strickland needs a little bit more to get that respect, and I just don't think he's going to have it. I don't think he's going to have the offense needed in this fight, especially when Dricus is pushing him back. So I'll go with Dricus Du Plessis, and I'll say either a first or third round TKO. I just don't want to say second round again. Oh, my God. Every fucking fight that I pick a TKO in is like the second round. But I'll say first or third for Dricus Du Plessis, okay? I can't wait for the press conference, though, because I just saw a video of Sean Strickland talking to Chris Curtis, and he said that he sent a message to Dricus saying, hey, listen, we're going to kill each other in the cage anyway. Don't talk any shit about my childhood, or else I'm literally going to go and commit an act that would get me locked up, okay? So I want to see what Dricus Du Plessis does at the press conference, all right? And if he does talk shit, that'll just make this fight so much more interesting. I think Strickland's cooled his head a little bit. I think he's a little bit more relaxed now. His coach, Eric Nixick, had a word with him and probably talked some sense into him. So I think he's going to be calm, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to the presser, all of the embedded episodes, and this card in general, I do believe will be really fun. Again, not many big names, but a lot of fun matchups, a lot of one-sided fights. We're going to see a lot of finishes, so do not sleep on this one. Until next time.